Welcome to SIPAcon. My name is Mateen Syed. I have here with me Ravi Belani, who is with Dripper Fisher. Ravi, welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. Your topic was interesting today, from zero to hero in today's economy. I wanted to get a synopsis from you in a minute and a half or two, if you can.
Sure, happy to. So what I was addressing was the scenario of building not just a good business, but a phenomenal business. So the businesses where all stars align and you go from zero to hero within 7 years and you create a business that changes the world. And those businesses are phenomenal businesses. So just to be, it's a rare breed, it's a rare species, but the idea is that if you hit it right, and if you get those companies to follow the right basic points, you have a venture that is unrivaled in its impact in the duration of its life. That was the overarching theme. And the idea behind that, the details behind it, was that to create these businesses, there's so few of them that if you can sort of spot pattern recognition across the different ones that you see. And the three elements that I think are critical for developing these companies, and these companies, to be clear, are companies like Cisco and Sun and Skype and Baidu in China or Google in the United States. And they're all companies that grew up between 1.5 to 7 year time periods and changed the world. And the common elements between those three, or between these companies, and one of the things that I mentioned in the speech was that it's sort of like Leo Tolstoy's quote in Anna Karenina, where he says that all happy families are the same, but each unhappy family has its own unique story. All companies that fail have a reason that they can pinpoint towards why they fail, but the companies that succeed, the companies where everything aligns, are ones in which there is there's a few constellation of events that, and a few dots that have to be connected. The first and the most important thing is to do something you love and to do something you're passionate about. And that isn't just a pie-in-the-sky idea. The reason that's actually a very core competitive business strategy requirement. And the reason why is twofold. The first is because if you're doing what you love, you're by definition seeing the world differently. Okay? And because of that, it's much harder for a competitor to replicate your strategy and to commoditize your business. And a classic example of that is Amazon. So Amazon started out, if you looked at it on day one, as a company that was selling books online, and now is becoming a cloud computing company. And if you connected the dots, you wouldn't be able to do so in a rational, sort of left-brain linear way. But it makes more sense if you think about Jeff Bezos, and you think about his mind, you think about the way he thinks, and you think about what he's passionate about. So the first thing is to be passionate. And the second thing, which goes along with being passionate, is to then find a market which is driven by a disruption. And by a disruption, I'm talking about an order of magnitude disruption. So either a change in regulatory environments or a change in a technological innovation, where you have something that's not an incremental improvement over yesterday, but is literally an order of magnitude improvement over what happened yesterday. And this also goes hand in hand with the notion of being passionate, because our brains naturally think in linear ways, in rational ways. And the rational mind will not capture the full value of disruption. And the classic example here is if you think about Moore's Law, and you think about sort of the cascading improvements where every 18 months the computing power of devices doubles. That innovation, that curve, has driven billions upon billions of dollars of innovation. And when you couple that with passion, you get things like the iPod, right? So the example that I gave in the speech, which Steve Jurvetson at my partnership is fond of giving as well, is this notion that Sony Walkman was sitting on the iPod market, the movable media market. And if you thought about it, if you think about that market today, it's suddenly gone to Apple with the iPod. And the only way you can make that connection between the two is coupling both the disruption that's occurred with memory and storage, as well as Steve Jobs and his passion. And so the two going hand in hand is required for creating these anomalous, huge companies. But the final thing in terms of the ingredient list is to go after old, lazy, fat, industries. Those are the best ones to attack if you can couple passion with disruption. You're going after industries that aren't used to competition. And so, we experienced this firsthand at Draper Fisher Jurvetson with Hotmail, which disrupted mail and the postal service, with Skype, which disrupted the telephone service. Nice, big, government-oriented, heavily regulated industries. So the theme of the talk was about how if you look at these businesses that have created these impacts within that short period of time, they've typically hit all three. That's the recipe for a happy, heroic business, to go from zero to hero. And the opportunity for more heroes is accelerating because technology is folding on itself, and those curves are becoming steeper and higher. And so if you look, and we did a bunch of comparisons, but if you look at Yahoo, for example, and YouTube, both of those took exactly 371 days from first VC funding to significant heroic status. For Yahoo, it was the IPO. For YouTube, it was the acquisition. Yahoo IPO'd at about $370 million value, around there, and YouTube was a $1.6 billion acquisition. It was a 5x in the same period of time. So this is a fantastic time to be alive.
A couple of years ago, we were all celebrating the flat world.
Yeah.
But when times like this come, we cringe upon the idea of outsourcing things or getting labor from the other countries.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't shut that down because we have to grow.
Yeah.
If you compare yourself,
Yeah.
you're a very accomplished man, even at Stanford and Harvard.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of bright kids who come from India, from IITs and high schools.
Yeah.
And your parents are a good example. That's
Yeah.
that's very
Your
good.
parents are fantastic.
But not everybody comes from IITs, or not everybody goes to Stanford or Harvard. But
Fair
still,
enough.
they succeed.
Yeah.
When you look around and you look back in your parents' generation, are there some nuggets you pick from these people and say, well, these are the traits that we can pinpoint and say to be successful?
Well, there's very few things that are correlated with entrepreneurial success, and so there's very few things that are recipes. If there were, you'd have more venture capital firms batting 1,000, and the reality is that even the best venture capitalists bat to be 33. But the one few things that we do have that are the elements of success, and I'll think about what the takeaways are for people, is a few things. One is, if you're the son or daughter of an entrepreneur, that's actually correlated with success. And in some senses, I think any Indian from India is an entrepreneur, even if they didn't live in an entrepreneurial job. Because just going about business in India, you will pick up implicit social understandings of how to get things done in ways that the West isn't privy to. And that's an asset when you come out here, because you can, we are, in some senses, to my analogy before, the U.S. is a fat and lazy and rich country, but we've been fortunate enough where we haven't had to develop the innate entrepreneurial skills that I think most Indians have. So I think it's a blessing to have those skills, to have been brought up in India, to come here. The second thing, and in fact, if you look at the best entrepreneurs, oftentimes a lot of these Ivy League schools, the best entrepreneurs are dropouts of those schools, and the schools themselves create risk aversion, so it's not necessarily a positive thing. But the second big trait with entrepreneurial success is first-generation immigrants. They drive, and there's a slide up in the presentation of all of the companies that have become big in recent times that are either first-generation immigrants or the sons and daughters of immigrants, and there's a high correlation there. And so I wouldn't underestimate that value. The only thing I would encourage you to think about is that if you have the interest and the resources and the stamina to do something, you can get it done in the U.S. And so I think oftentimes you're your own worst enemy. You can get it done. There's nothing holding you back if you go forward with it. The only other thing which is sort of correlated with entrepreneurial success is income. And that's, typically if you make more than $150,000 and you're starting a company, that has a negative correlation with success. And the takeaway from that is just to really be driven by doing something that you love, and to follow something that you're really passionate about. So my advice is that don't get deluded by the brand names. The brand names, the Stanfords, the Harvards, whatever. At the end of the day, it's all about people. And everybody is a person, and everybody has needs, and fulfilling those needs is the way to create big businesses. And if anything, Indians, I think, have an inherent service ethic, which is very innate to building big businesses, which you don't find as readily available in the West. And so I would not think about any liabilities. Anything that you probably think is a weakness is a strength. And I would let the market tell you that it's not, but I don't think it will. So don't hold yourself back.
Thank you so much for sharing. You appreciate that much.
Thank you. This was fun. I appreciate it.